We cannot eliminate all racial tension in our country overnight. We are not going to be able to identify ahead of time and eliminate every madman or troubled individual who might want to do harm against innocent people. But we can make it harder for them to do so. And if you look at the pattern of death and violence and shootings that we've experienced over the course of the last year, or the last 5 years, or the last 10 years, I've said this before, we are unique among advanced countries in the scale of violence that we experience. And I'm not just talking about mass shootings. I'm talking about the hundreds of people who have already been shot this year in my hometown of Chicago. The ones that we just consider routine. Now, we may not see that issue as connected to what happened in Dallas, but part of what's creating tensions between communities and the police is the fact that police have a really difficult time in communities where they know guns are everywhere. And as I said before, they have a right to come home, and now they have very little margin of error in terms of making decisions. So if you care about the safety of our police officers, then you can't set aside the gun issue and pretend that that's irrelevant. At the protests in Dallas, one of the challenges for the Dallas Police Department as they're being shot at is because this is an open carry state, there are a bunch of people participating in the protests who have weapons on them. Imagine if you're a police officer and you're trying to sort out who is shooting at you, and there are a bunch of people who've got guns on them. In Minneapolis, we don't know yet what happened, but we do know that there was a gun in the car that apparently was licensed, but it caused, in some fashion, those tragic events. So no, we can't just ignore that and pretend that that's somehow political or the president is pushing his policy agenda. It is a contributing factor, not the sole factor, but a contributing factor to the broader tensions that arise between police and the communities where they serve. And so we have to talk about that. And as I've said before, there is a way to talk about that that is consistent with our Constitution and the Second Amendment. The problem is even mention of it somehow evokes this kind of polarization. And you're right. When it comes to the issue of gun safety, there is polarization between a very intense minority and a majority of Americans who actually think that we could be doing better when it comes to gun safety. But that expresses itself in stark terms when it comes to legislation in Congress or in state legislatures. And that's too bad. We're going to have to tackle that at some point, and I'm not going to stop talking about it because if we don't talk about it, we're not going to solve these underlying problems. It's part of the problem.